What's up, guys? Let's go ahead and hop into it. What are the best features in Diablo 4? So today I want to go on a more positive side of things, go over the top 10 best things that got added into Diablo 4. As someone that has played all of the Diablo games, a lot of times I will read the comments and I will see people saying, wow, this feature was added in the previous game and it wasn't in Diablo 4. Why is this not in Diablo 4? But today, we're going to be actually looking at the positive things that really make Diablo 4 a lot better in terms of a game. So, start right off, I want to go ahead and go over the whole system in terms of being able to weapon swap. Now, this technically only applies to a few characters, but there is an option to weapon swap in Diablo 2, and I think it's a really cool system, and it doesn't really exist necessarily in Diablo 4, but how it does work is your weapons fluidly swap. So what I mean by that is you have certain abilities that will automatically swap to whatever weapon is actually needed to do that ability. This is more common on specifically the rogue as well as the barbarian, but it may apply to other classes in the future if they get a new weapon archetype. And the reason why I think this is actually a really cool system is, if we look at Diablo 2's design in terms of the skill tree, and Diablo 2 is still one of my favorite games of all time, but how it kind of works in terms of your weapon swapping is, a lot of times people may not want to even swap weapons because one, doesn't do it fluidly, and two, you have to invest your skill points into other things, and Diablo 4 doesn't really require you to necessarily do that. So the reason why I think this is actually one of the best features and why I'm listing this at number 10, even though this is not in any particular order except for the last one. The last one's actually the most important. But I think this is a really cool thing because this allows you to actually kind of build out the character that you want and not have to kind of look at your skill tree and say, well, I want to play with, let's say, Javelin and Spear. And you're going to automatically get your passive, skill points in. But as far as your bow and crossbow skills, if I'm going to be a Javazan, well, the bow and crossbow skills tree is almost basically worthless for this section here, right? So I think that's a great addition to the game that a lot of people don't really realize. When you're able to weapon swap, you don't need to put points into specifically that sort of weapon. Like in Diablo 2, if you played let's say the barbarian, you would have all of the different things to your combat mastery. So you'd have axe, swords, and all those other different weapon archetypes where you kind of have the more freedom in Diablo 4, and I think that's a really overlooked thing. The next thing I want to talk about that's really good, and this is at number 9 for me, is the inventory size of items. Some items are, a small charm, it's only one thing, or a potion, it's small, and then you had some larger items that would maybe use up, let's say, 4, but then you had some massive items that would take up 8. So in terms of inventory management, I think Diablo 4, while I would still like to see more stash space, I think that overall the changes to having all the items kind of be the same size really help out, so you don't have to play this whole inventory Tetris game to try to manage to fit everything in there, so you don't have to go back to town, because loading in between is not the most enjoyable part of any action RPG, and I don't think it's really necessary. The reason why it existed in a lot of games before is because of game actual limitation, where you can only have so many items being rendered on your character. So to save on the maybe memory size, some games did use tricks, especially if you look at some of the designs in Game Boy Advance games that had any sort of RAM limitations by levels or items. Yeah, it was actually done previously for other reasons, but now, we gotten to the point where that shouldn't really be the issue. Another thing that I think is a huge thing right here is that yellow items are actually viable. This is more of a thing kind of comparing Diablo 3 with Diablo 4, and this is specifically where, at the end of the day for Diablo 3, when you're at the end game, all the items that are not legendary or set items are basically useless. Now, you could argue, well, in Diablo 4, everything is legendary, but you're still picking up yellow items and you're essentially converting them. So it actually gives yellow items value, and that was one thing I really liked with Diablo 2 that we really don't see in Diablo 3. And Diablo 4 kind of makes a return. It's kind of like a midway point, because obviously we just get to throw on the aspects. And I think the aspect system alone is almost worthy of another one, but I'm grouping these two kind of in one. So the yellows are actually good. So you have rare items that actually have weight to them versus, again, oh, it's not legendary. Well, it's just garbage at that point. So I think this is a nicer change. And then on top of that, the whole set items. If you played Diablo 3, this was a huge complaint from some of the people that would min-max in RPGs a little bit more. You would have people complain, well, the whole game is based off of set items only. And while that is definitely true in terms of the higher end of the game, for the most part, there is Legacy of Dream builds, but pretty much most of the best builds in the game, where you take 6 pieces of your gear, which is a lot of times basically half of your character's build. You run all of these, so you have a lot less creativity. Now, this only kind of applies, and this is all going to be subjective in this video, in terms of, like, you know, the top 10 best things. But I like the idea of not requiring, you know, basically half of your gear to be requiring you to use these specific things in order for any build to become good. And I do want to see set items in Diablo 4, but I think maybe the limitation of maybe only going into like a couple slots, not just basically more than half. So if there's like a 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 for a set, I think that could be interesting. But to have so many things dedicated towards your character, it really kind of removes the freedom of what makes an action RPG kind of more unique in the idea of creating your own fantasy in terms of your character. You're just basically looking at, oh, did I just get this? Because basically all boots or all pants are worthless unless it's basically this item, if that makes any sense. So I think that this is kind of a nicer thing that Diablo 4 didn't introduce at the start of the game. Maybe they're going to introduce it later, but I think that for the start of the game, it's pretty good. The next thing I wanted to go over is basically the visuals. I have it marked at number 6. So I really like the art style. Like, obviously, yes, the graphics are going to be better than Diablo 3, which is what we're comparing to, but it's specifically the art style and them staying pretty much true to the core art style, right? Like, you see, you know, it is in this gothic fantasy realm that doesn't have any of these like bright, vibrant colors. This, if you guys didn't know, this is actually the monk in Diablo 3 in a game called Here's the Storm. And while this is a cosmetic skin that you can actually get in the game, we don't have any cosmetics that turn your character into like a unicorn with rainbows that shoot out, right? And while that may exist in the future in the game, at least as of right now, I like the art style that they've gone, and they've stayed relatively true to the Diablo universe right now. I don't really mind if they maybe incorporate some other things. Maybe they can add a couple weapons from the other Blizzard games, but as long as they don't add like a giant like rail gun or something from like the StarCraft universe, but like maybe they could have some special Zerg boss that could kind of fit in sort of the universe. I think collaborations are still cool, that they can, you know, introduce, you know, things from the other Blizzard games or even other video games in general. It'd be cool to see maybe like an Elden Ring collab where they have some special event, right? And I want to see this exist in Diablo. Remember, this is a live service game. We need to have more meaningful like updates, although this video is only focusing in on the positive, so I'm not going to get too far into that. But again, staying true to the art style and the visuals, I think is really good. Now, the next thing up, this kind of only more so applies to the earlier stages of the game, but it's the way that the combat feels. This is one thing that I think Diablo has done very well in terms of like all of the games as time has progressed, and especially since now we have kind of removed more of the CC and like the hit stun. Now, this was very relevant in Diablo 1, and I actually kind of enjoyed the earlier stages of Diablo 4 where if you got hit by a stun or a freeze, you were dead. However, a lot of times in any game, when you lose control of your character, it feels bad, especially towards the end of the game where there's like some giant explosion. So towards the end game, it kind of becomes a problem in terms of, you know, the hit stun, and they have kind of addressed this, you know, being frozen and basically unable to control your character, giving us powers like metamorphosis and being able to basically have unstoppable for most of the classes, but it's in the earlier stages where, like, when you use a skill on an enemy, you can kind of feel the reaction a lot better in Diablo 4 than I would say pretty much any other action RPG right now in the market. So it's like the Visceral Combat. It's one of the pillars of an action RPG that I think is really big. This was something from like the GDC 2019 from Chris Wilson. But I think it's a really good topic. It's like the way that the combat feels, because if the combat doesn't feel good in your action RPG, well, that's kind of a big part, the gameplay, so to speak, right? And then the other thing that I want to talk about is the transmogs in the game. This one I have at number 4, and I think this is a pretty big deal because no one wants to have their character look exactly the same as other characters. So being able to transmog at any point and not needing some sort of transmog token or something that you have to buy in the shop. Now, I get Path of Exile is a free-to-play game, but you have to pay money, like real money, not like this is, even though it shows like a little gold thing. You have to pay real money to actually skin transfer, and in this game, it's just like, hey, you already have the skin, swap it, feel free to go and do so. And you do so at any time, and it doesn't require some sort of special material. So I want to give him some mad props on that, because while a lot of people are always worried about this game being pay to win, there's no pay to win in terms of cosmetics, and I think that that is really, really good. And it's very like free, as in you can swap at any point. And then the next thing I actually want to mention that is actually really good is these campfire chats. I really enjoy them being able to come up front, because what are the developers consistently going here and saying, hey guys, we see your feedback, this is what we plan to change. And I really enjoy these live game updates, so to speak, and them being kind of more active in the community. And as a Diablo partner, it's so great to be able to relay that information to them directly. And then also you guys can also, you know, go on to the live stream and do the live campfire chats as well. But don't subscribe yet. We're actually using background gameplay of other things here. I'll give you guys some Ball Lightning Sorceress gameplay. But I really do like the idea of having this live campfire chat and being able to kind of see what they are working on. Sometimes it does take them a little bit longer than I would like, but at the end of the day, they are still being active, and that is a good thing in any video game. And the next thing I actually want to give them props on, this is kind of similar to what I'm talking about, which is kind of their activeness. They had a massive quick hotfix to the Abattoir of Zir, and I've never seen a game act this fast. Like when we first looked at the numbers for the Abattoir of Zir, the brand new endgame content, where people were like, dude, it's impossible to level up this glyph. Within just a few days, they're like, guys, we're changing it. And it was instant. And I was really blown away by how fast they were able to react to this. So knowing that there are, you know, people out there that are like, guys, we got to get this out, and it needs to come out immediately within the next couple days. This is on the same level I expect from, like, let's say Fortnite, which, you know, sometimes there's complaints in that game, and they actually address things relatively fast. But Diablo was on top, and I've never seen any action RPG, I would say, take action this fast. Like, it was posted immediately. So this was really, really good. And my last one, which is actually at my number one over here for the top 10 things that I really like about Diablo 4, is actually kind of more in the druid department, but this could actually apply to some other classes. This is actually one of my favorite features in Diablo 4, and it shows that there are people that are working on the game that have that insight that I actually want to see in an action RPG, which is skills counting as other skills. While I really love Diablo 2 for the ability to have rune words and being able to basically use skills from another class, like specifically being able to use the barbarian shouts, right, with call to arms, or if you're able to use fanaticism with like a special, you know, rune word on a bow, or if you're able to, as a sorceress, turn into a bear, or a barbarian can use a druid turn into a wolf. I like this idea. This one has our storm skills are now werewolf skills, and then there's like another aspect that you can put on for the druid that makes it so your werewolf are storm skills, and werebear are now earth skills for this sort of passive. And there's a lot of things that kind of apply in this sort of situation. I think that this is what I want to see in action RPG, and I'll be talking a little bit more about like critiquing criticism in the game. But as far as like build design, this is actually really cool, because right now it's kind of just like pick any core skill. But this over here, when you're looking at specifically like the druid, where you can have your skills count as other skills, and then all the different modifiers could actually have some synergies. This is big, and it's one of the coolest things that I think I've seen ever in an action RPG, with the exception of when Diablo 2 back when 1.1 came out, where we had the synergies, which is one of the coolest things ever. But anyways, yeah, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for the top 10 things that I really enjoy about Diablo 4. A little bit of a positive note, since I've been heavily critiquing Diablo 4, so I wanted to at least let them know what they're doing right and what I think the community actually really likes. Obviously, this is going to be subjective, so I'm curious to know, are there any things that you guys really like about Diablo 4? Let me know down below in the comment section below. But thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe if you're new and you want to see more gaming content, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.